Yeah. So um the piece on, if you remember what you looked at, what was discussed in the video on stress management, that there was a section of there that talked about nutrition and there are certain nutrients that are related to a person's ability to manage stress, to deal with stress. A lot of times, stress has a nutritional component to it in the sense that if you're not getting the proper nutrients that your body needs, if you're not getting certain nutrients that your brain needs in order to process certain nutrients. So for example, you need B complex vitamins in order for your body to process to transform carbohydrates into glucose. And so, carbohydrates is like your starches, right? Like you're eating beans, bread, pasta, stuff like that. And so those foods have to be converted into a form of glucose, which is like sugar, but it's not the same like white sugar that you buy in the store, but it's when it's transformed into glucose, it comes into a form where your cells of your muscles and the cells of your brain can use them for energy. About 20% of all your body's energy is utilized by the brain because we need the brain to the brain has to do a lot of work. Um, One of the reasons why human beings have larger brains than a lot of other animals is because the brain is our survival mechanism. So when human beings were evolving, we didn't have the physical strength to have the physical stature and body type to be able to fight or run away the way other animals did. And so we had to use our ingenuity. We had to use the brain. And so the brain takes so the brain of the human is very large in comparison to most other animals that are similar to us. And so our brains use a lot of energy in order to operate. Okay, hope that makes sense. So so um what I want to talk about is the way that I conceive of stress and nutrition and the role of certain nutrients that within the body and the role that those nutrients play in giving us the ability to manage stress. Okay. So if there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and start. Um, Let me try to figure this out as usual. Share. And let's see, share this, share that. Okay. Now I'm gonna say slideshow, play from the start. Okay. And everybody can see the screen. They can see the presentation on your screen. Okay.
Yep, all set.
Okay, cool. All right. So um hold on one second. This hold on one second. This shade is making a lot of noise. Oh shit.
So we can't hear it on this side if you're worried about us.
Okay, you say you can't hear?
Yeah, no, I can hear you, but we can't hear any background noise.
Oh, yeah, it was bothering me.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I could hear it. It's really noisy in this room, but anyway, I got it together. Okay, so this is going to combine some history, some anthropology, archaeology, and nutritional science into one. Some sociology too. So and some evolutionary science. So one thing that I want you all to think about is the fact that you know, we have this concept called civilization. And what is civilization? And we know that by the standard definition of civilization, that what we call advanced civilization is an evolutionary process, and that people in Africa developed the first civilizations. And so when we look at why civilization developed in Africa, we have to look at the Nile Valley. And we have to look at the Nile Valley being a place where the earth was very fertile, where you had certain factors that came into combination with each other, such as the fertile land, the water resource, the climate, which was very well suited for the growing of plants, and also people having the ingenuity to develop the science of what we call agriculture. Okay, so let's keep those things in the back of your head. This image that you're looking at now, what you're looking at are different um, grains, different formulations of food which are created from grain. And so you're seeing crackers in the front, you're seeing pasta, you're seeing bread, and other food items that are created from grains. And what you're seeing here is that all of these items are brown. They have a dark brown, rich color. And that's important to understand because today, if you put the same picture up, you will see mostly white bread, white rice, white pasta. And we sort of take it for granted that these are the way that our foods are supposed to look. Now, I think somewhere in the Bible it says bread is the staff of life. In other words, you need bread as the foundation of your diet. And when they say that, I don't think that they're necessarily talking about the like bread by itself, but any type of food which is made from grain. Bread is made from a grain. You can make bread from wheat. You can make bread from rye. You can make bread from barley, and so on and so forth, right? And so bread. Why is bread or grains so important to the development of human civilization? Because it allowed human beings to have a ready supply of food, of nutrients, of energy. What's the purpose of eating? The purpose of eating is to gain energy. And so how do you have a large population of people who are living in concentrated areas, like, say, what we call a city? How do you keep them fed? Okay. in the past, before you had agriculture, agriculture is the science of growing plants for the use as food. Before you had that, um, you had people, you had human beings who would mostly move from one place to another. They would hunt for animals that they could use for protein, and they would pick um, various wild growing fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and certain types of grains that they could use for energy and for carbohydrates, for minerals, for vitamins. Okay. And so they would get these things from the land, and as they would exhaust the resources of a particular area of land, they would move on to a different area of land. And so, therefore, their housing, for example, was not permanent. So they lived in more easy to build temporary housing that would allow them to abandon it and then move on to someplace else, okay, without having to worry about anything. So, when you look at ancient Kemet, everything was not everything, but you had a tremendous number of stone buildings. So this building out of stone, stone is meant to be permanent. It's not meant to be abandoned after um, a season or two seasons. It's meant to be lasting for decades, if not centuries. Okay. And so we saw this change take place in places like the Nile Valley because of that valley's ability to produce large amounts of food. And a lot of that food, the foundation of that food or the foundation of that abundance of food was in the form of grains. When you have grains, you can have what you call granaries or silos where you can store. So grains are not as perishable as other types of food items. So you can store them and they would maintain they will retain their nutritional properties for an extended period of time, unlike trying to store an orange or an apple or a banana or some type of fruit, which are more perishable and more susceptible to deterioration because of age and the environment and stuff like that. Okay. So, so grain became the foundation of the civilization. When you have grains, you have a source of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are your source of energy. Today, we live in a society where people are concerned with weight loss because so many people are consuming foods which are denatured and do not have nutrients and have been stripped of the nutrition of the natural nutritional factors that they are supposed to contain. And so you have people. So now you have a whole industry within so-called nutrition that talks about low carbohydrate, high protein diets, because in this industry, they are blaming obesity on people consuming too many carbohydrates. But what I'm saying is that carbohydrates is the foundation of your diet. It's the foundation of a healthy diet. And so how did it come to pass that now carbohydrates is viewed upon as being the enemy of your health, the enemy of your good diet and something that causes you to become fat, overweight, or obese. So I would say that this is a misnomer. Okay. So let's begin here by looking at the structure of what we call a grain. So on the left side, you see the image of a typical grain. So a grain of a grain like this, a grain of a grain, what one grain of a grain type of food um, is basically has the same structure. So this could be a grain of rice, it could be a grain of wheat, and so on and so forth. But it has the same structure. So what you're looking at is number one, the outer shell or the outer the outer part of the structure. You see that there is a um, something called fiber. And so the fiber is the part of the grain which actually encapsulates the grain, protects the grain from decay, protects the grain from penetration by different types of organisms, different types of creatures that may want to eat it. It provides a certain amount of protection, but this is called the bran, and so the bran also contains a certain amount of nutrients. And so this is grain in its natural state, like in the picture that you saw earlier. And so you're seeing that the bran contains fiber, it contains B vitamins, it contains minerals, and it contains other types of protein and what I call phytochemicals. And so you have chemicals, you have nutrients within your food that have not even been identified yet, okay, by so-called science. So there's a lot of nutrients that we still are trying to identify. So that's number one, the bran. So if you look at the illustration, you see that the bran is the outer coating of the grain. Then when you look at part two, so part two is called the endosperm. The endosperm that is the main part of the grain, and it contains carbohydrates, it contains proteins, it contains some amounts of B complex vitamins. Okay. And then the third part of the grain that we're looking at is called the germ. So you see that at the bottom, part three. So the germ is packed with minerals, B complex vitamins, vitamin E, and many other so-called phytochemicals. Okay. And so the germ is one of the major sources of nutrients. The bran is a major source of nutrient, and the endosperm is a major source of nutrients. But if you went to a Chinese restaurant and you ordered some rice, and they bring you a little bowl of white rice, what is that white rice that you're looking at? Is it rice that contains the endosperm? That is it rice that contains the bran, the endosperm, and the germ? Or what is it? Why is it white? It's white because the bran has been removed from it. It's white because the germ has been removed from it. And so basically, all you're eating is the endosperm, which is mostly starch, what we call carbohydrates. Okay. And so, how did it get to the point where the predominant form of grains that we see in the world all over the planet Earth are grains that are white, grains that have been stripped of the bran, grains that have been stripped of the germ. How did this situation occur? Because of imperialism and because of colonization. So again, we have to see the intersection of, I don't like to use the word white supremacy, so I use the term white fragility. So we see these European powers that became, these nations that became powers all over the world, the British, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and so on and so forth, the French. And we see that they colonized different places around the world in order to provide themselves with large amounts of profit, in order to exploit the natural resources of those places. And so, as they exploited the natural resources for the gold, the silver, the other types of precious stones and precious minerals, and so on and so forth that come from the earth, they also created plantations and big, large industrial sized farms. And on those farms, they would force the people in the places that they colonized to grow stuff for them for free. And so, because these people lived in remote places, such as where England is and Germany, not Germany as much, but France and so on and so forth, they had to create a navy. So these navies were ships that allowed them to be able to move around the planet and to be able to transport the goods that they were exploiting from native people and indigenous people all over the planet. And they also created trade. And so you had different companies and corporations. This is how you get different types of companies, corporations, and so on and so forth. And this is how you get even banks. So the Bank of England, for example, started because they needed a way to store the money that the tremendous amounts of wealth that they were stealing, and also as a means of using the bank and the money that was accumulated in the bank to finance the efforts of other um, imperialistic individuals and companies that were formed that carried out the function of stealing, and exploiting people from all over the world, right? And so as they put these items, these food items on the ships, and it would take them so many weeks to transport them across the ocean to the destinations. So they were trading from India to China to the Philippines, throughout Africa, South America, the Caribbean, North America, and so on and so forth. Even the Hawaiian Islands, so on and so forth, right? And so you had this global network. And so you had food that was traveling either from the places that they were being cultivated from back to the home country, or from the places where they were being cultivated from back to other um, so-called trade partners who were receiving the goods, because they were purchasing them. Okay. And so um, as those food items were being placed on these boats for these 6 weeks, 8 weeks types of voyages, there was a decay. There was attack of these food items by um, fungus, other types of organisms, plant type organisms like a fungus. There was attacks by insects. and they were attacked by mice. And so the Europeans, especially the British, they um, felt that too much of their product was being destroyed in the process of transportation and that they were losing money. And so they hired scientists to try to fix this problem of why are these plants getting, why are these food items getting mildew? Why are these food items getting attacked by vermin, insects, mice, rats, so on and so forth? What can we do to to um, stop this stop this process? And so, in short, the the scientists informed them that they tried different things. And so one of the things that they tried that they settled on was stripping the grain of the bran and of the germ, because in their experiments, they found out that when they stripped the bran and the germ from the grain, that it would become less appetizing for the different types of creatures that would consume it, and that it would be less less able, that things like fungus and things that cause decay would be less able or less able to feed on them, because these things are eating, right? When fungus or some type of um, living, type of organism gets onto a piece of food and you see it start to decay, to the point that we don't want to eat it, that actual organism is actually consuming it and living off of the nutrients that it's getting from it. And so when they took those two parts off, they found that these things could last longer on the voyage and they can have a greater percentage of their product reach the destination. Okay. And so when they did this, they were taking these food items from places where the population of people who were living in these places that they were colonizing and that they were exploiting through these imperialistic practices, that the people was using these grains as the foundation of their diet. And so what they found was that once these people who were farming for them, who was being forced to work for them, and so on and so forth, that these people started to lose vitality, that they started to lose strength and their endurance once they started to consume this white rice and other white products as the foundation of their diet, because their diet wasn't very they didn't have a wide range of different things to put into their diet, because they was kept in a state of poverty and so on and so forth. And so and so so they were dependent upon, let's say, rice as being the staple of their diet. And so what they saw was that these people were getting weaker, that these people were suffering from different types of ailments and diseases, you know, even the sailors on the British ships, So right now I'm talking about how did nutrition evolve? How did the science of nutrition evolve? Because they didn't always know about nutrition. They didn't always know that there were certain factors in food that had specific types of benefits to them. And so And so one thing that they learned in addition to the fact that grains were causing, that these denatured grains would cause ill health amongst the people that depended upon them as the foundation of their diet. They also found that as their sailors would be on boats for extended periods of time, that they would develop certain types of nutrition, certain types of diseases that they then were able to attribute to nutritional deficiency. And so one of those deficiencies was called scurvy. And so scurvy is a vitamin C deficiency. Okay. And so if they were on a boat, they would eat a very poor diet, something that they called hard tack, which is like this, just taking some like making some hard bread and making that almost like a cracker, and this is something that they ate as a way to just keep their energy up. But they didn't get enough vitamins. And so they didn't get enough vitamin C. And you need vitamin C in order for your B complex to be absorbed into your body. You need vitamin C in order for your body to process carbohydrates. So you can't just eat carbohydrates and expect your body to utilize them. So vitamin C helps you to utilize calcium also. And so scurvy would be characterized by problems with the teeth, problems with the bones, and also problems with the nervous system, because you need vitamin C in order to process calcium, and you need calcium for your nervous system to function properly. Because when your nerves fire, there is a role that calcium plays in the nerve, the electrical impulse passing from one nerve ending to the other. And so calcium is involved at that synapse, at that place where the nerves have to jump from one, where the energy, the electrical impulse in the nerve has to jump from one nerve to the next. And so you need to have calcium to make that process be efficient. And so they were noticing all these things, that these people were developing these things. And so eventually they figured out that if they would put barrels of lime juice on the ships, and they would require that the sailors would drink lime juice once a day, that this eliminated the problem with scurvy. And so the sailors in the British Navy, they were called limeys. Okay, you might have heard that term before if you watch old movies or whatever. But the limeys were these British, sailors. Okay, so I'm just giving you a background on how all of these things are so related back to nutrition, related back. Okay, and why we have so many health problems because of poor nutrition. So we can see the impact of imperialism, the impact of enslavement, the impact of all of these different factors related to oppression and the expansion of empire amongst the Europeans, and how it has impacted global health, for centuries. Okay, so that's why we don't have whole grains anymore. One of the things that they observed when they would when the native people or the indigenous people were started to eat these white products where they have been stripped of the bran and the germ, they noticed that when they took the bran and the germ, they threw it away or they gave it to the animals. The animals remained healthy and vibrant, while the people lost energy. And so the scientists so-called discovered that there was something in the food that they was throwing away or giving to the animals that had life. They gave you life. They gave you some type of vitality. And so the word vitality, the word vital, that is a word that means life. And so they coined the term vitamin. Vitamin, this is where it comes from. So the word vitamin and the science of nutrition that we know of in today, it evolved from the British and the other European powers trying to find ways to preserve food even after it has been stripped, and why people would get sick or lose their vitality after consuming it, and without being able to have a varied enough diet. Okay, so so the so here we see, so here on the screen we're looking at now, we talk about the benefits of whole grains. So we see that when populations of people consume whole grains, that you see a reduction in the rate of heart disease and cancer. You can see a 30% reduction in the risk of heart disease. You can see reduced risk of stroke, reduced risk of diabetes. You see an improvement in the health and functioning of the bowels due to the increased fiber and bulk. So one of the things that we have to do is really just like if any of you have a baby, have a child, and you have a child that you change the baby's diaper, and you look at the contents of the diaper to see if what the characteristics of that bowel movement is, and if it's, let's say, it was hard little balls, you would be concerned. Let's say that it was very watery, like a very watery stool, you would be concerned. So you look at the quality of the bowel movement of the child, and you should also look at the quality of the bowel movement of yourself as an adult, because your bowel movement is supposed to have certain types of characteristics to them. Okay. So when we talk about improved health and functioning of the bowels, it is due to the increased fiber and bulk, which is contained in the whole grains foods that you're consuming. Okay. So when you consume a certain amount of fresh vegetables, fresh green leafy vegetables, when you consume a certain amount of grains, um, when you consume a certain amount of green leafy vegetables that are raw, that are not cooked, and so on and so forth, you're going to have, and when you consume the proper amount of liquid, water and other types of liquid containing fruits and so on and so forth, you're going to have a certain characteristic to your bowel movement that could either be um, positive for proper movement of the bowels and elimination of waste from the body, or could be antagonistic to that process. Okay. And so you have to think of your body scientifically. Your body needs the correct amount of raw ingredients, the correct amount of different types of in combination of foodstuffs that allow you to form the proper bowel movement. Just like your baby, your child needs a certain amount of the right things to have a bowel movement that you're going to feel that my baby is healthy. Okay, that makes sense. Hope it makes sense. Okay. And so that's why we tell people, look at your bowel movement after you release it into the toilet. Look to see, look at it. There's a whole other lecture I do on that issue. But these things are important. These things are important in understanding what are the benefits of your yoga practice. One of the benefits that we want to see is a better quality of bowel movement. What we want to see is an increase in the number of bowel movements that we are having. So we want to see an increase in the number, and we want to see an increase in the quality of them. So having a bowel movement, the bowel movement should be very smelly. It should have not, I'm going to say it has a good smell, but it's going to have a light smell, if any smell at all, and it should be in the shape, in that sort of snaky shape of your colon, so it's moving out of your colon. Think of your colon as like a pipe or a tube. And so you want to see that your bowel movement is in that tubular shape, that form. And you also want to look at the color. It should be a color that reflects to some degree the color of the food that you have been eating recently. And when you have a bowel movement, your bowel movement should be at least 24 hours. For what comes out of you should have taken about 24 hours to make its way through the whole digestive process, assimilative process, and eliminative process. Okay, about 24 hours. And this is another reason why we recommend that people do not eat meat, because meat goes through a process called putrefaction. So putrefaction is a chemical process of decay. So say, for example, you saw a dog get hit or a possum dead on the highway. One time I was in a forest down in Atlanta, and I was by what's that place? The Chattahoochee River. And we outside in the middle of fresh air and everything, and something had a very extremely foul smell. And there was a small little animal that had died, but the smell of it was tremendous. And so, that small little animal gave off this tremendous odor because its carcass was putrefying. Now, say you leave some carrots in your refrigerator for a month. The carrots are not going to putrefy. The carrots, you're going to see leaves and stalks growing off the carrot, because the carrot is alive. It's going to maintain its life, where a dead animal has no life. So the chemical process that dead flesh goes through is called putrefaction. And this putrefacitive process causes carcinogenic chemicals to be formed. And it's these carcinogenic chemicals that are being exposed in your bowels, in your colon, your intestines, your stomach, your bloodstream, that is causing, disease like cancer, and cancer is able to spread through your body. So that is one of the reasons why we as yoga practitioners, we have we discourage ourselves and others from consuming meat, or at least too much meat and animal products in general. Also, the animals that consume meat, they have a very short digestive system. So if a dog, a cat, a lion eats a hunk of meat, they have a very strong chemical in their digestive system. Their hydrochloric acid is extremely stronger, much more stronger than a human. And it is designed to process that meat and push it out of the system, push it out of the body quickly within 6 hours. Whereas when food goes through our system, it stays in there for about 24 hours. And so therefore you have this putreficative process that actually is poisoning the body and creating states of disease. And year after year after year, these disease states are being multiplied because of the fact that we continue to expose ourselves to this putrefaction. Okay.
Baba,
Yes, ma'am.
may I ask two questions?
Hmm.
Okay, the first question I have is, can you give some examples of, I know I eat barley, that's one of my favorite ones, and quinoa, but
Hmm.
what were some of the other grains in the photo?
Oh, well, it's just a general photo. But
Oh,
if you're eating quinoa, if you're eating millet
mm-hmm,
is one that has millet was actually one of the foundations of African agricultural civilization. So millet is a key one that is used in Africa. So you got millet is easier to digest. Quinoa is easy to digest, easier. I'm talking about in relative terms. Um, and then you got rice. Brown rice. If you eat brown rice, you want to try to get organically grown brown rice. You want to get anything that you eat to be organic if possible, because organic means something. It's not just a trick. Organic means that the soil has not been chemicalized with fertilizers, chemical fertilizers for about 5 years. It means that your fruit or whatever the food is that you're eating has not been sprayed with chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers,
mm-hmm,
and so on and so forth. Um, so whatever you choose to eat, whatever
mm-hmm.
type of grain that you choose to eat. Some people today, a lot of people say that they're what's that intolerance that when they say they can't, they get sick or they feel bad when they eat like bread or grains or
Or
rice.
like, you mean like gluten intolerance or
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
Do any of those grains have to be soaked? Like, do
Well,
they have to be have it soaked so that the seed opens a little bit? Because that's what I was thinking. Is it harsh on, would it be harsh on your digestion if you didn't soak it, similar to like legumes?
well, you should soak. I mean, it's recommended. I don't know, I don't know if it's gonna harm the grain or impact its digestibility
Mm-hmm.
if you do not soak it. But if you're gonna cook most grains, the way we was taught growing up, is that you soak it first,
Mm-hmm.
or you let it get a certain, you let it absorb a certain amount of moisture, and then you cook it, right? And I don't know if that's because of the cooking process, if that shortens the cooking process, or if that has something to do with some type of nutrient retention. I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that you can also make a lot of grains. You don't have to cook them. You can soak them, and you have to refer to somebody like Aris Latham or somebody like you know who because they do Aris Latham. He's one of the masters of the he's one of the pioneers of the raw food or live food movement in at least in our Black community.
Hmm.
And I know he makes dishes with raw rice, but it doesn't taste raw. It doesn't taste cooked like it's been boiled, but it's you're able to eat it. It's not hard, you know.
Hmm.
And so he goes through a process which I don't really remember what he does. I've been with him a few times, but I don't remember how he does the grains. But I'm just saying that it's possible to eat those things raw. You don't even have to boil them or cook them like that. But this would be the degree of soaking that you put them through and how long you're going to soak them. And you can soak them to the point where you can actually eat them without having to boil them,
Okay.
you know. But that's something you would have to research on your own. Something, you know, I'm sure you can find the information.
Okay. The other question that I had was, as we age, uh, I have heard, read, whatever, that the body loses muscle mass more rapidly than it would if you were, in your prime years. So I have been a vegan for many years, but then as I was going through menopause, I started like gaining weight really fast.
Hmm.
And probably, didn't stick to like a healthy vegan diet all the time just because of my schedule. But I did start incorporating some protein uh, to support, maintaining muscle mass. Uh, do you have any like recommendations for types of protein that are better than other types? I don't really eat chicken, but I do eat lamb, goat, and fish.
Hmm. Well, you know, I'm 72 and I've been a vegan for 50 years. So I have experienced, you know, the different changes that your body goes through as as your body moves through chronological time. So there is a biological component to this, what they call aging. And so you do have to, I think it's prudent to adjust your diet um, at certain points in time as you see the need to adjust your the routines that you do to maintain your diet to maintain your body, but you may be doing more cardio type exercise. You may engage in certain types of resistance exercise. So when I say resistance exercise, I'm not just talking about I'm just talking about like weights,
Mm-hmm.
some type of calisthenic that's going to challenge your muscle,
Right.
which in turn also challenges your bones. And so yeah, it becomes a little bit harder. That's why you want to be very consistent in how you live your life and
Mm-hmm.
how often that you work out and do the things that you have to do. Now, in terms of going back to eating animal foods, you know, that's an option that a person can do, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that you know, and I'm going to give you some, you know, as we go forward, I'm going to give you some ideas about how you can consume high protein, high nutritious foods that that have where you can get more usable protein, more usable nutrients than you get from consuming animal foods, right? Because the animal foods, they have a limited degree of digestibility. So even though you may get a greater concentration of protein, you also get less digestibility from those foods in addition to the more of a toxic load that they are giving you, because of the the process of decay that
Right.
food is going through. So there's other ways of getting protein. There's other ways of getting the thing that your body needs, and
Mm-hmm.
get them in a more efficient manner where your body can efficiently deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah. But thank you for the question. That was good questions. Um so just in terms of general knowledge about nutrition, um, and again, think about nutrition like this. Think about it in the context of science. So think about like how you have something called anthropology. So anthropology is the study of human development, of human culture and social systems, or at least human beings. And then you have something called sociology, which is studying the um, the development and the complexities of different types of social groups. And then you have archaeology, which is studying the artifacts that were left by different past cultures and groups of people. And so you also have this thing that we call nutrition. And so all of those different social sciences that I just talked about, including psychology, right? They all developed into what we call social sciences because of the need of the imperialistic desires of the Europeans to really have a systematic way of exploiting other people. So it wasn't just academic or scholarly curiosity that developed these different systems, these different schools of study. It was really what do we need to do in order to get enough data on people so that we can control and exploit them. So that's the origins of archaeology, sociology, anthropology, psychology, and so on and so forth. And so nutrition came out of that same thing. So, um, the need to know what proteins are, what the body needs, and so on and so forth. It also, the science of nutrition also is related to the development of what they call the eugenics movement. And so you all might be familiar with the term eugenics, right? And so eugenics is the idea that people need to become fit. They need to become muscular. They need to have superior endurance. They need to have a superior degree of of physical excellence, because how else can they become the master race unless they do these things, right? And so you can look at nutrition in the context of that. So they wanted to know what are the best foods to eat to make my body be the type of body that I want it to be. Um, when you look at different events like the Olympics and different sporting events and sporting things, a lot of those things evolve from the idea of we need to have um, we need to have systems of encouraging people to become to engage in fitness and to put a value on fitness, to put a value on nutrition and eating properly and being able to develop their bodies and stuff. So that not only so that they can become soldiers, not only so that they can become but also so that they can become child producers, so the healthier the body, the better child producer you're going to become. And so you can't create a super race. Let's think about Nazi Germany, but this idea started before the Nazis, but the Nazi, movement came from that, developing a superior race of people. And so they emulated. So when the eugenics movement began, part of it was emulating who they felt their ancestors were. So they emulated the ancient Greeks, especially people like the Spartans. The Spartans, if you look at different movies today, like 300, and you see how the Spartan soldiers were portrayed as being very muscular and very fit. And even in the movie, they don't even portray them wearing clothes the way the Spartans really did wear clothes, but they portray them as, they portray them just with some little swimming trunks on and with bare chested, bare legged and stuff. And everybody, in between the takes of the shots they doing, everybody is going to the bench press and the arm lift, to lift weights, in between each shot to make them look more muscular than what they even were. So they have this imagined view of what their ancestors look like, based upon some of the statues that they see where they were very muscular and stuff like that. And so this eugenics movement was, evolved in such a way as to how do we create the master race? How to create people who are superior? And a lot of this influenced yoga too, And so one of the reasons why you see yoga being having a lot of very intricate and gymnastic and contortionist types of practices in it is because when during the time of the British colonization of India, the British, who were very interested in this idea of eugenics, in this idea of fitness, they were influencing the evolution of the schools of yoga in India and using them to produce young men who can then become fit enough to be able to join the British Army and to go to different lands around the world where they were fighting wars against indigenous people and have them, have a certain level of fitness. And so that's how somebody like Mahatma Gandhi wound up in South Africa working for the British Army to oppress and control the Zulu during the and probably other indigenous groups of people in the South Africa region, to so you had Indians who came up in these systems being shipped out and by the British Army to go into these different places to fight for them, right? And even to fight against their own people. So if you know a story, and I don't want to, I'm just putting all this stuff together, but there's a story by a man named Rudyard Kipling. So you all are familiar with the Jungle Book, okay? And you probably seen the movie, you probably seen the cartoon, the Jungle Book, and So he wrote that. But he wrote another book called Gunga Din. And Gunga Din was an Indian soldier who was fighting on the behalf of the British. And Gunga Din gave his life to save the life of the British officer that was in charge of him. And the British officer, towards the end of the book, the British officer says, "You are a greater man than me, Gunga Din," meaning that you're a greater man than me because you gave your life for me, but I sure wouldn't give my life for you, you know. And so put all of this into the context of eugenics, nutrition, archaeology, anthropology, colonialism, imperialism, all of this stuff unites together. Okay. And so, and so, so there was a need to study the science of nutrition and to actually create a science by which they can have usable knowledge to understand things. Now, I'm not saying, now, of course, Native people and indigenous people, they also had knowledge. They also had knowledge of nutrition. They also had knowledge of the healing properties of plants. In fact, their knowledge was way more extensive than the knowledge that the Europeans had. So they knew how to pick plants, and they knew how to do a lot of different things, you know. But the Europeans, they took knowledge into a different direction than the way that the native and indigenous people and the colonized people did. So, from a scientific perspective, when you look at protein, we know that protein is essential for the growth of the body, and it carries out functions such as maintenance and repair. Okay. And so so what is the building blocks of protein? The building blocks of protein are amino acids. Okay. And so there are 21 different amino acids, of which 7 are what you call essential amino acids, meaning that you have a food that contains those 7, you have a complete protein. Okay. So if you think about it in that way, if you have, let's say, some beans on one side and some brown rice on the other side, now no white rice, but just giving you this as an example, some beans and some rice, some beans and some corn, you're going to have the nutrients, you're going to have the amino acids that produce what we call a complete protein. And so under those circumstances, you don't need to eat an animal to get protein. You don't need to eat an animal to cause your muscles to prosper, right? Many of the world-class bodybuilders of today, they are vegetarian, they are vegan, you know, because they have understood the science of how can I build my body effectively and efficiently without destroying my health. So you look at somebody like Ronnie Coleman, who was one of the great Black bodybuilders, but he broke his body down because he was using, not only was he using a lot of meat and stuff, but he was also taking steroids. And so now he can't even walk, and his massive body has whittled away to a small body. Okay. Now let's talk about B vitamins. B complex vitamins. You have 2 types of vitamins that your body utilizes. Okay, so protein, that's what's building your body. your bone, your muscle, your hair, so on and so forth, your nails. All of that is the foundation of all those things about you is protein. Now, vitamins are what you might call catalyst. They cause different chemical reactions to take place within your body. So the body itself is built based upon protein, but vitamins are things that carry out certain types of actions in your body. Okay. Now, B complex vitamins fall in the category of what we call water soluble. So you got two types of vitamins, two classes of vitamins. You have fat soluble and you have water soluble. Fat soluble means that your body is able to store them in the fatty tissue of your body. So you have certain fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D. You get vitamin D from where? You get it from the sun, but you can also get vitamin D from the consumption of certain types of sea creatures or from taking supplements made from like cod liver oil and fish oils and so on and so forth. You can also get what am I talking about? Vitamin, did I say vitamin D? Um, yeah, vitamin D. So you get that from those different sources. So you get it from the sun, you get it from fish oils, and you can also get vitamin D or what they call omega-3 oils, which is a type of fat that's good for you. You can get that from flaxseed oil. Okay. And so that type of nutrient is stored by your body in the fat cells of your body. Vitamin E, vitamin D. Okay. B complex vitamins and what we call vitamin C fall into the category of water soluble vitamins. So this is all very important. This is something I want you all to remember and be able to recite back to me, okay? Water soluble versus fat soluble. So water soluble means that your body does not store them. They are released. Any type of excess that is not used by your body at the time that you consume it or around the time that you consume it is going to be released from your body in the form of your urine. Okay. And so water soluble vitamins are your B complex and your vitamin C. So your B complex vitamin, you can talk about B1, B2, B6, B12, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the technical names that you're seeing here: the thiamine, the niacin, the riboflavin, the pyridoxine, the pantothenic acid, folate, right? So they help to convert carbohydrates into glucose so that the brain can use those carbohydrates for energy. They are essential for the breakdown of fats. Okay. So you need B complex for your body to break down the fats that you consume. Fats are not bad for you. Fats are another form of nutrient. Just like you got vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbohydrates, and you got fats. Fats are nutrients. Your body needs fat. Okay. The right type of fat. Okay. And we'll talk about that. So, so your B complex vitamins, if you notice that sometimes you might take a vitamin pill, you might take a multivitamin, multimineral pill, and then when you go to the bathroom, you urinate and you see that your urine is real yellow or orange because you are basically releasing those B vitamins and vitamin C and other vitamins that may be stored in that pill, in that tablet. You may be releasing them into, through your urine. And so that's what you're looking at. So basically you spent money to buy some vitamin supplements, and then you go to the bathroom and you piss your money down into the toilet because you're not storing that stuff, because those vitamins, that's telling you that what you were eating, what you were consuming in terms of those vitamins were synthetic, and your body doesn't recognize this synthetic substance. And so therefore, it's not been absorbed into your body. Okay. And so you got water soluble and you got fat soluble. So B complex vitamins are needed to convert carbohydrates into glucose. Glucose is what your cells of your body take up for energy. Glucose is what the cells of your brain, the cells of your nervous system take up in order to perform the jobs that they are supposed to be doing. Okay. So if carbohydrates are not changed into glucose, they're going to turn into excessive fats and accumulate in your body. Okay. And as I showed you previously, you should consume carbohydrates from whole food sources, because those carbohydrates are going to contain what? The B vitamins, the B complex vitamins that are needed to convert them into glucose. Also, vitamin C. Why do you need vitamin C on a daily basis? Why do you need copious amounts of vitamin C? Because vitamin C is needed to allow your B complex vitamins to be absorbed into your body. Okay, so vitamin C, talked about this already, but vitamin C helps to convert, helps your body to absorb the B complex. Vitamin C is essential for helping your body to absorb calcium. Vitamin C is essential for your body to absorb iron. So vitamin C carries out a wide variety of functions in your body. In fact, vitamin C is is active in every metabolic process that your body carries out. Okay. And so so the way I have consumed, the way I have perceived or conceived nutrition is that the foundation of your nutritional practice has to be the acquisition of B complex and vitamin C, has to be the acquisition of raw green leafy vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds, because they contain the foundation of everything that your body needs, not only for nutrition, but also to create the bowel movements that you want to have so that you are eliminating the waste from your system. And that's a whole nother lecture too, okay? So what we're looking at now, last week, last time I asked you all to listen to the lecture about stress management. Now, I want you to look at this chart, this slide here, and I want you to look at the different symptoms of stress that are identical to the symptoms of B complex vitamin deficiency. Okay. So what we call stress often has a component to it that is related to poor nutrition or nutritional deficiency. So when a person is experiencing the negative effects of stress, you have fatigue, you have irritability, you have constipation, depression, loss of appetite, inability to concentrate, anxiety, headache, digestive disorders, poor memory, cramps, swollen, sore, red tongue, insomnia, diarrhea, numbness, and tingling in the feet, slow healing wounds, cracking in the corner of the mouth, skin problems, abdominal pain, and even to the point of suicidal tendencies. Okay? And so when you are a yoga teacher or you are a therapist and you working with clients, you're a counselor, people who come to you are going to be exhibiting these symptoms, not necessarily all of them at one time, but different ones of these symptoms, because most of the people who have the need to have to come in contact with somebody who we might call a therapist or a counselor or some type of helping professional person is experiencing some type of difficulty. That difficulty, I would say 100% of the time, has a nutritional component to it. Okay. And that nutritional component, which is a deficiency in nutrients, is affecting their ability to think, their ability to concentrate, their ability to focus, their ability to have self-control. It's affecting their ability to maintain their wellness. So they're going to suffer from other types of illnesses, right? Because of the fact that their bodies are suffering from these from these nutritional deficiencies. Okay. Now we're gonna talk more. Okay. Now there are certain common foods and substances that we consume that actually interfere with your body's ability to absorb B-complex vitamins and vitamin C. And some of these things, I'm not saying you should never consume them, but I'm just saying that some of these things are, some things on here I say you should never consume. So let's start with coffee, right? So coffee contains caffeine. The second one on this list is refined white sugar. Most people are going to put white sugar with the coffee. And so both of those things together, both of them singularly actually interfere with your body's ability to absorb B complex. They absorb vitamin C. Combined with the white sugar or white sugar by itself is also having the same effect. Alcohol is a toxin. That's why they say this person is intoxicated, because alcohol in and of itself is a toxic, is a toxin. And so even though human beings, have developed this thing called alcohol, it is really not something that we need to take into our bodies. Chocolate. Now I love chocolate. So I ain't gonna say I'm not gonna eat chocolate, because chocolate has certain positive effects on your mood, right? So chocolate is a mood changer, but chocolate can also, especially the industrial chocolate that is created with lots of sugar and things like that, and other types of chemicals that they put into chocolate products can interfere with your body's ability to absorb certain nutrients. And so chocolate, alcohol, refined white sugar, coffee, so on and so forth. These substances also affect the biochemistry of your brain, okay, in ways that, like I say, chocolate itself is a mood elevator, but alcohol is not a mood elevator. White sugar is not a mood elevator. The caffeine in coffee gives you a sense of energy, a sense of alertness, but it is not natural. Your greatest sense of alertness and energy comes from when your brain is well nourished because you're getting your proper amount of B complex vitamins. Okay. And so as I'm talking, we're moving towards certain points. So just bear with me. Okay. You got commercial tea. So you got tea bags like Lipton tea. What is Lipton tea? When you look at Lipton tea, you look at a box. I don't know. I haven't looked at a box of Lipton tea in a long time. But when I was a kid, we had Lipton tea in the house. And when you look at the box of Lipton tea, you see this little old white man in a type of a military type of cap or a sailor's cap. And he's sipping on this tea, on this cup of tea, right? And it's supposed to make you say, oh, I'm going to have my cup of tea now because I'm seeing Captain Lipton sipping on his tea. So that tea, that type of tea, is made from a particular plant that grows in India that the people in India think is garbage and they would never touch it. But the British like it because of its high caffeine content. Okay. And so that's why when they feel their energy going down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they say, it's time for tea. We're going to have our tea break. And so that's where all of that comes from. So they want to get that boost of energy that comes from drinking that tea. Okay. I think the plant that it comes from is called an orange pico. And I think people in India think that plant is garbage. They don't take it. Okay. Now, even more important than some of these other these other items that we're discussing are your chemical food additives and chemical food colors. So that's what so those things are some of the predominant components of what we call processed foods, food additives in terms of flavor, preservatives, you got food colors, red dye #1, red dye #2, whatever, yellow dye #3, whatever the different names of them are. All of those different artificial colors that they put into food. And you also have artificial flavors. There is an area, I think it's in New Jersey, where you can go through the New Jersey Turnpike, if I'm not mistaken, and you can be on a highway and you can go through a certain area where all of the major food additive companies are located. And so you're not looking at farms, you're not looking at food production facilities, you're looking at these types of industrial places that's got smokestacks and smoke coming out of these chimneys and stuff, right? And if you go inside, you can become part of a tour group where they would have a person come out in a lab coat and they say, okay, close your eyes, or they put a blindfold on you. They say, okay, smell this. We put something underneath your nose. They say, well, what are you smelling? What does it smell like to you? And your eyes are confined. And you say, oh, that smells like fresh strawberries. And then when they open your eyes, you see that it's nothing but some chemical in a test tube. But they have been able to duplicate the smell of what we call fresh strawberries and so on and so forth, right? And so that's the type of things that they're doing in these places. They are producing foods that not only mimic the taste and the smell of natural foods, but very importantly, they are placing chemical substances in these foods that whose purpose is to cause you to become addicted they're putting chemicals that are designed to interface with your brain in such a way as to cause addiction. Okay. And so that's how, so the whole purpose of eating, the whole purpose of producing processed food is for the purpose of producing addiction in the consumer so that they can maximize their profit. Okay. So when you go to the store and you see your little favorite snack and your favorite this and your favorite that, just remember when you look at the ingredients, you're going to see this long list of different substances that you can't even pronounce, and that the purpose of those things are drugs. They may not be classified as drugs by the FDA, but they are drugs in the sense that they are causing addiction. They interact with the brain in such a way as to cause addiction. Okay? And so cigarettes at the bottom here, of course, I've had people tell me on these are some of the stupid arguments I get on to people with on Facebook. I had a person tell me that breathing was bad for you and cigarettes, no, he said cigars, and cigars was good for you. And he said, but controlled deep breathing was bad for you, and it was so stupid. It's like, man, I can't even talk to you about this because this is stupid. Um, but so when I researched cigarettes, I printed out the list of ingredients in cigarettes, and the list was 13 pages long. So you would think that cigarettes is just some tobacco wrapped up in paper, but cigarettes has 13-page long list of chemicals in it. And cigarettes are called, in the industry, they call them a nicotine delivery system. So cigarettes are designed to deliver nicotine within the cells, the receptor sites on the brain, the receptor sites for nicotine, because the nicotine is the addictive factor. So all the other chemicals are designed to make that nicotine get into your brain. And the way that all drugs work, and also the way the different types of chemicals of emotion. There's a book called Molecules of Emotion, and everything that affects our mood and the way that we feel, the way that we think and stuff like that have a chemical component to them. Okay. And so what does that mean? What is the mechanism of a chemical addiction? Is that within your brain, you have certain molecules that actually, when you consume something, those molecules dock at certain receptor sites on your brain, within your brain cell. And when they dock into those places, they produce the feeling of being high or some type of mood altering state or some type of altered mood state. Okay. And so and so so when people smoke a cigarette, but also when they consume processed foods, it could be McDonald's, it could be Burger King, it could be Little Wendy, it could be um what's the thing? Pizza, any type of pizza. Those foods are designed to cause addiction. And take cheese, for example. Cheese has a substance called casomorphin. Let me plug my laptop in before it die again like it did the last time. I lost y'all. And I'm gonna have to I'll probably finish the rest of this next week because I'm going over because I think this is a lecture that takes a little bit longer to really go into. Um, yeah, because I think it's coming up on our time. Uh, so um, what was I saying? The Somebody help me catch back up. I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Anybody remember what I was saying right before I stopped?
You was talking about cigarettes. You would think that cigarettes was just tobacco on paper, but that they have a bunch of chemicals in them, and that cheese has casomorphine.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That puts me back on track.
Hello?
No problem, brother.
Yeah, yeah. Kumasi, can you
Yeah,
hear?
you were talking about the other chemicals in the cigarettes and the 13 pages is what I remember last.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the last thing I was about the casomorphins
And cheese.
that's in the cheese.
Yeah.
Now think about it. Now think about how our culture is set up. Somebody's you have a party at work. What's the first thing? Oh, let's get some pizza. Oh, let's go to lunch and have pizza. You get a bunch of school kids, high school or college together, grade school, and they're going to get together to study. What they're going to do? They're going to go get some pizza. Um, Pizza has cheese. Cheese and milk products in general have something called casomorphin. Look at the word morphins. That's related to the word morphine. And so these foods, these so-called foods, they have chemicals in them that make them addictive. And so there is a book called Drugs Masquerading as Food, which is a good book to get. Drugs Masquerading as Food. I forget the author's name. Okay. So these foods that we are being encouraged to eat and that young people are encouraged to eat. And, you go to Chuck E. Cheese, or, kids want to go to Chuck E. Cheese because you look at McDonald's and how they have all of these different, you got the Ronald McDonald clown running around and, they give you little they give children little McDonald's toys and gifts and knickknacks and stuff like that. I know a person who has a whole room of thousands of these McDonald's knickknacks that they give out over the years. And she says that her collection is worth over $100,000, you know. So that's like neither here nor there. But but the I'm sorry. But the somebody was texting me, my sister, to see what she wanted. Um but the bottom line is that foods are used as an instrument of control. Foods are being used intentionally to control the behaviors of people, to control their consumption habits, to cause them to want to you know to purchase, to be a continuous customer of these companies that sell this stuff, you know. And so that's where we are at this point in time, is that we are slaves to these different corporations and companies. And a lot of times, like doing, a lot of times, people, they miss the point of what the mechanisms of this control is. They say, oh, they're flying airplanes in the sky at 30,000 feet, and they dropping they putting some, what they call this stuff, chem clouds or chem streams, chem trails and all this kind of stuff. They don't do that. They just put it in your food. It's very simple, you know, to deliver chemicals to human beings living on like if I'm in Chicago, I'm on 63rd and Halsted. They're not going to take an airplane, fly it at 30,000 feet and put some chemical in it to affect my behavior or to affect my health. They're going to put it in when I go to McDonald's, when I go to Wendy's, when I go to Church's Chicken or Pizza Hut. Why would you do something that's so inefficient as to drop it out of an airplane at 30,000 feet? Okay. So, so we got to look at the basic fundamental things of what we put into our bodies, what we put into our mouths in terms of how it's affecting us. And so we as yoga teachers, we as therapists and counselors and so on and so forth, we have to understand what it is that our students and our clients, if you have clients, what they're going through. And we had to factor in to whatever diagnosis that we have about them, the role of the foods that they're consuming. There's a company in Wisconsin called Mantiwalk, and they make bread. And I think they make other types of health foods also. But they decided to take their money or take some money and open up a school in Wisconsin. And they wanted to do an experiment where the only thing that they was going to they were going to take students, like I think it was all males, who were in high school but had been who had got in trouble with the law, got in, had a record or police interactions and violations and stuff like that, or were failing in school and stuff like that. And the only intervention that they gave these young people was changing their diet. And so they opened up this school and they recruited these people, these young people, to be there with only a with the only intervention being a healthy diet. And they found that there was profound change in the behavior of these young people simply because they stopped eating garbage, simply because they stopped eating processed foods. And so once you took the chemical, it's like if you take somebody who's a drug addict and you get them off drugs, and then they not a drug addict no more. They don't act like a drug addict. They're not acting like a crackhead, no more because you taking them off of crack. And that's essentially what we're seeing. When we're working with people, when people are coming to us for help, they are coming to us in a state where they are addicted. They are addicted to the drugs that are masquerading as food, in addition to being addicted to the drugs that are literally presenting themselves as drugs, you know. So, yeah, so that's why I want to leave it for right now. Anybody have any questions or comments? Because I'm going to do the second half of this next Wednesday when we meet.
No, I don't have any questions, but that was excellent information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of good information, definitely.
Okay. Well, the next part of this is going to go into, creating, uh, you know, a quick, strong source of nutrition that you can take, and it'll give you all of your nutrients and everything that you need to have in order to counter the negative effects of nutrition-related stress. So again, stress management, the practice of yoga, the practice of meditation. What I tell people is that your diet is 50% of your practice. When you go to certain yoga classes now, you see people saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a wine and cheese session after our yoga class," Or you got some people who do what they call beer yoga. They drinking beer and probably off the butt of a goat or something. I don't know. It's just crazy stuff that people are doing. And so, you know, if you're serious about what you're doing, then you would understand these processes and stuff. So I want y'all to keep practicing and, come to class. There'll be class tomorrow. On Zoom at the same time. I won't be teaching it, but one of the other instructors will be teaching it until I get back to Chicago. Okay. And then review this video, which I'm going to send to you. And if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to say Hotep, Ankh Ujasineb. And Uncle Jacinel, that means life, health, and prosperity. And then I would talk to you all next time.
Thank you, Baba Yasir.
Okay, thank you, Hotep.
Brother,
Good night, everybody.
have a good
Yes,
night.
sir. Okay. All right, peace.